if the underlying issue for bedtime procrastination is the fact that you feel like you don't have enough autonomy in your life, and that's a weight on you, that's what needs to change. People have to work, and, if you are in a job or something that doesn't allow your neurodivergence to flourish and you have to mask, you need to figure out ways to accommodate yourself that don't involve you putting off resting, because one of the biggest pieces of my unmasking journey has been to learn the capacity I have to do things. Welcome to Divergent Paths. I'm your host, Dr. Regina McMenomy. And yes, I am a doctor, but not that kind of doctor. And this is a podcast, not medical advice. If you've ever wondered why you can't just go to bed, this episode is for you. We discuss a surprisingly emotional topic, revenge bedtime procrastination. That late night spiral of just one more episode or scrolling until your eyes blur, even when you know you're exhausted. We'll explore the real reasons why your brain resists rest and what you can do about it. Joining me for this discussion is my good friend and co-host, Russ Catanach. So stay tuned, and thanks for listening to Divergent Paths.
Okay, so American Horror Story. Have you ever seen it?
I have not.
Okay, well, I won't tell you to watch it because I want you to actually watch it. It's creepy, okay?
Yes. So I know about it, and I've had friends who are huge fans, and it's not running anymore, right?
No, but it's like the shows you catch up on that you didn't get to watch because you have kids, and so you got to put on something late. Okay, so anyway, I was like, I got to catch up on this thing. I got to see it because I watched one season, and I'm like, well, I kind of want to see one of the earlier seasons. So I watched this one with this creepy house, and I think there were 10 episodes. And I did it all in a night.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because now I don't know if it was that I was sort of frightened to leave the room, to be quite honest. This is creepy stuff.
You're like, I got so scared I couldn't stop watching.
Maybe.
Okay.
Or was it just that some sort of, I guess, revenge on my day, as now I find out about this new topic here, the revenge bedtime procrastination. Is that what I was doing? Maybe I was.
I don't know. It might be.
Okay, well, tell us what it is.
Okay. So revenge bedtime procrastination is when you put off going to bed or going to sleep, or sometimes you'll go to bed. Like for me, I go to bed and I scroll. You delay going to bed or falling asleep as a means of having some sort of agency over your day. So people who tend to mask a lot, or who have little control, or who are neurodivergent, who need to act neuronormative during the day, will often suffer from, or often they don't suffer from, often participate in revenge bedtime procrastination, where they put off going to sleep so that they can feel like they've got some time to enjoy themselves or whatever.
Couldn't this also be the other way around, of waking up in the morning, oh, I'm not going to go to bed.
Yeah.
I can start my day. So it could just be,
I could see it working that way too. Where you just lay in bed and scroll, or turn on a TV show, and watch a show instead, end up getting up later than you need to get someplace, because I could definitely see that happening too.
It's funny. So one of my, an improv teacher that I had, this guy, Drew, he would always have us stand up, because he said that there's something with chairs and improv that when you're sitting, somehow butts get stuck to the chair. And they don't get up and they don't do the scene. But when you're standing, you're out there doing it. I feel like this is sort of even,
Yeah, and there is something too. I used to make my students stand up to introduce themselves in class, because you speak louder when you stand up.
Ah,
Like you just
really?
naturally,
Okay.
like if you stand up, you are going to speak louder than you are if you are sitting. It's just some like brain thing where like, you feel when you're sitting, you feel
You're
maybe
just one
more
of the crowd.
enclosed. Yeah, and
Yeah.
when you stand up, even if you're standing up at a table, if you stand up, you are likely to speak louder. So yeah.
Interesting. Well,
Yeah,
I'm gonna utilize that
yeah.
as yeah, yeah. I'm not gonna get into it. I could talk more about this is not an improv show,
No.
so
Well, I mean,
we
we
won't get into it
improvise,
here.
but
There is that. There is that. Uh, all of life is improv.
Yes.
Okay, so doom scrolling, we all know that one. TV shows,
Right.
right?
Yep.
Netflix just
TV
going
shows.
off on the whole
One
season.
more one more turn syndrome in like a video game
Oh,
or
right,
whatever. Like, if you're playing a video game, you're like, okay, I just need to get to one more quest done. Or if you're playing Civilization or Civ 5, which turns can take like an hour, but you'll
right,
be like, oh, just one more turn, just one
right.
more, or just one more episode. Same with just one more episode, which is what you kind of were describing with American Horror Story, well, you got through to this point, like, oh, I want to just make it to the end of the next one, or, whatever
Right,
this is.
right. It is very frightening, though. Even talking about it now, I'm a little scared. I'm looking behind me.
Yeah. I don't
Um,
do scary shows like that,
okay,
especially by
yeah, maybe.
myself.
Yeah, yeah, maybe
Not
not.
it, not it.
Um, it could also be though, and like I I've mentioned before, like FileMaker, the software that I love,
Right.
that I get into these project modes. And
Yep.
there was a night, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks ago, where I just like all of a sudden it's 2 a.m. because I'm
Yep.
so, you know, but
Yep. Yep. Hyper
so
focused.
is that the hyper focus or is that this?
It could be a combo. I mean, I would, if you're in a project and you can't stop, you know, working on the project. A friend of mine described this the other night or the other day, where she was telling me she was working on assembling a trampoline she got for her kids. And she finally stopped. She had to stop at one point finally to take care of her body in some way. I think she said she had to go to the bathroom, and she went inside and saw that it was 2 o'clock in the morning. And she had been outside working on this trampoline, since like 9 o'clock or something like that. That's more likely hyperfocus. Bedtime procrastination is more where you do things that like you think are going to help you relax and don't. Like, and scrolling is probably the most offensive of these. I
Right,
definitely fall into this with like video scrolling or getting into TikTok and watching TikToks instead of going to bed in a reasonable hour, and I will lose time. Where I will be like, oh, I'll just do this for 20 minutes. And an hour later, I'll be like, whoa, why am I still up?
right.
So
Well, I
there's a
mean,
subtle difference
isn't TikTok just trying to do that anyway?
to keep you on indefinitely.
Well, I mean, short videos, they're
Yeah.
little dopamine
Short
hits.
videos in
Boom,
general. It's not just
next,
TikTok
next, next.
anymore. There are Reels, there's YouTube Shorts, any short
Right,
video content, is intended to keep you in the app and, or on the site or whatever to continue scrolling.
right. And okay, so what does this like? Actually, I know, Regina, you give me notes,
I know.
as we all know, but as you and I know, I never follow them, but I try to get close as I can. But what about just like not that part, like not something external? What about shutting, like, oh, I like you hear people
You
say,
can't
I
sleep,
couldn't shut
yeah.
off my brain, I couldn't
Yeah.
sleep. So you're stressed about something. Is that
Yep.
also a part of this?
Yeah, it can be, or you can use like different strategies that you think are going to help yourself sleep, or help you get to sleep. One of the things that I discovered in the research for this show, I knew this from experience of my child's sleep schedules, my daughter's sleep, is she has to run her tank out of gas, like, and her tank being her brain. She has to run whatever's in there out. And so sometimes that involves a lot of talking. And she just literally, and since she was little, she just goes and then is done and crashes out to sleep. Because apparently in the new parlance of the youths, crashing out is to get angry. So I have to remember that I mean crashing out, falling asleep, but crashing out for the youth of the day is to get angry.
I just learned that. I'm gonna write that down.
There you go. Now you can be cool. I learned about delayed sleep. I learned about delayed sleep phase syndrome, which is something where people with ADHD in particular have circadian rhythm disruptions, where you don't release the melatonin that tells your brain it's time to sleep, like most people would, or like neurotypical or neuronormative brains would. So it's literally your brain doesn't get the signals that it's time to sleep. So that kind of, and I've talked about this before, where there isn't that easing into sleep. It's just like hitting a wall. There's actually there's a name for that.
Well, as I'm learning on the show, there's a name for a lot of stuff.
There's a name for a lot of stuff
that I feel. And then it's like, wait, now you're talking about it.
Right.
Well, okay. So, why is it that so many neurodivergent people feel like that? Why, that they're going to crash hard at night, that they're, or that they need to, sorry, I guess I can't say crash hard now. It's English. But why can't they, why is it difficult to ease into sleep, I guess is the appropriate.
I think it's just the way that your brain ends up being wired. Your brain is wired for, all of this activity, and your brain has all of this activity going on. So, and on top of that, when you have people who might be late diagnosed or who are required to mask in their lives, either personally or their professional lives, if they work in an environment where they can't be their authentic selves.
Mm-hmm.
Revenge bedtime procrastination gives them a sense of control over a day they have very little control over. So if you can put off going to sleep, you feel that sense of I'm claiming this time and I'm getting this time. So here you have an overactive brain that craves stimulation, and a job that might not, or a life that might not give that kind of stimulation. So then when you get to bedtime and you're like, oh, I need all this stimulation I didn't get during the day, and I want some autonomy. So I'm going to indulge in whatever distracting, activity you're going to indulge in. 10 episodes of American Horror Story, or, scrolling for an hour.
So what about though? Okay. So, I might look at whatever YouTube shorts. I don't do the TikTok thing because I'm not that cool. As we're determining this episode, but doing the YouTube shorts, I'll scroll through them, or I'll scroll through some sort of content, or I'll read some sort of content, and then you lay down, and then it's all of a sudden now you're thinking about that content, or you wake up in the middle of the night and you're thinking about, that thing that you just learned, or whatever it is. Also a form of this, or is that okay?
I mean, it's also a form of, it's what your brain just is focusing on. So, you wanting that time to, watch your YouTube shorts and enjoy the content that you watch there. I won't say what content Russ watches on YouTube shorts. So I'm thinking about it right now.
I do. And she's amazing at jumping rope. But anyway.
You're enjoying it, right? And think about that. If you've had a day where you didn't get to enjoy yourself very much, and you get your pleasure center's activated from, the videos that you're watching, and you're having fun and you're enjoying it, and it's also, like I said, that like one more turn in video game, whatever, but like one more video. Cause I fall into that. I'll be scrolling and I'll be like, okay, you're just going to do this for 20 minutes. And my 20 minutes will be close to up. And I'm like, okay, one more minute or one more video or whatever. And then it just happens to be a 10-minute video that pops up, because there are 10-minute videos on TikTok. So I'm like, oh no.
Right.
Or I scroll 4 times to get to something that is a video that I want to watch, through a bunch of people's lives or whatever is coming up. But, it puts you in this cycle of like, you're still stimulating your brain, which is sometimes what you need. Like sometimes you need to burn off, like that's the fuel you need to burn off when you're ADHD. Sometimes the fuel you need to burn off is stimulation that you didn't get during the day. So
I've written down 2 questions.
Okay.
First question is, when I think back to, going into, I worked in radio. I worked long hours. There was the commute time afterwards, right? I'd sit on BART, or I'd sit on, whatever, in traffic. And it's like I'm doing something for myself in the way that I'm, maybe listening to some sort of audio, or, it's the old days. Maybe I picked up a newspaper. I was looking at the newspaper,
or magazine,
or
right?
There was something that was sort of, like the little downtime, the little, the me time after work. And now, many people work from home. Many people don't have that commute downtime,
that transition time.
And so, when you work from home, you're putting off all the tasks that you would normally do during the day. You're doing those at night, and you get those tasks done. And then it's bedtime. You want to do some of the fun stuff. You want to like do those things.
You want to do those things you didn't get to do during the day. Yeah.
Right. So I feel like this has shifted a lot over the years, like massively. Is that?
Yeah. Well, I think our transitions are different. I think you definitely call that one really important transition, in that like drive home from work that people had at one point, or commute from home from work that they had, where, I used to listen to, when I worked at IBM, when I lived in New York and I had a 45-minute drive home. I used to listen to audiobooks a lot of the time as part of my transition, or I would be listening to the news on NPR, or this was before podcasts. So to date myself just a little bit, so I wasn't able to control like the music that was on necessarily. So sometimes I would listen to the radio and, just listen to, whatever.
Or you'd put on an 8-track.
I'm not that
Sorry,
old.
No, I'm really aging. Making you older.
We are not that old. I didn't even have a cassette player in that car. I had a CD player. I would put on CDs.
Okay.
So audiobooks are mostly on CDs, that kind of thing. But yeah, so that transition time, we don't have as much anymore.
It's gone.
Right, it's gone. And so in terms of transitions, when you are transitioning to sleep, that is something that like you might want to engage in some of these activities that you haven't been able to engage in.
So, okay, now I keep adding to my list of questions. I'm sorry. I'm not getting to yours, but I'm having a good time here learning about this. So if you were to take a break during the day, like we've talked about before, like taking some time for yourself, doing a walk, just, meditating, whatever it is.
Or scrolling for 10 minutes or whatever. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Does that help at the end of the day?
Yeah. And that's one of the things with like flexible, workplaces, where you could have a break where you can sit and play a couple of rounds of Bejeweled Blitz, or, whatever. If you play I like matching games. If you play a matching game, you can play a couple rounds of matching games, or whatever it is that you do. If you do some of that during the day, if you build into your schedule and your lifestyle more frequent breaks of these kinds of things, then you get to the end of the day and you don't feel like you're in a debt of it, right? Where you haven't had time for your fun and your enjoyment and your, all of those things that you would want to be able to do, that you end up at bedtime going, oh, well, I didn't check this Instagram account, or I didn't check, there's a couple accounts on TikTok that I follow that are story accounts, where they're like fictional stories that are following. And every day not every day, but almost every day there's a new episode. And I always go to check to see, is there a new Shauna the Mom out? She's on YouTube if you want to check it out. It's really good. She plays all the characters. It's amazing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you said I want to check it out, so I can't. You got to go back to that episode. I can't remember what episode was that.
PDA. Pathological demand avoidance.
Listen to that episode. Make sure it's like a required listening for this show because we reference it a ton.
Because we reference that a lot. Yeah.
And now that I've told people to listen, they're not going to.
They're not going to, right? Because if they're neurodivergent, they have a PDA profile. They're going to be like, screw
listen
you.
to that episode.
Yeah.
So the tank is low already at the end of the day, and now you've stayed up all night. Next night comes around, the tank is still low, but you haven't hit your Instagram channels or whatever that you check, and you're just like, okay, I need to go check my Instagram. Do it again. I need to go, whatever.
Get into a pattern.
We've got a pattern and we've got a cycle. How do we make this not become chronic?
Oh, well, I mean, learning, like forgiving yourself for the desire for the autonomy, I think is really important, right? Like not shaming yourself, because getting into blaming yourself or feeling bad because this is how you function is only going to make it worse. Like saying to yourself, like, why can't I just go to bed? Like, it's just not that easy. Getting into cycles that, or rituals like that help you get away from using your phone maybe at night, or, not starting, like you were talking about, getting caught in like a hyper focus and getting caught on a project that you're really enjoying, and not being able to stop it. Like maybe having just a general rule of not starting projects past, 9 p.m. at night or whatever is, an hour or two before you go to bed. I say 9 p.m. at night and I fall asleep regularly after midnight. So like,
right.
And recognizing like I'm pretty good. If I can get about 7 hours of sleep, that's usually I'm pretty solid if I can get that. So I generally have to get up around 7 o'clock in the morning. So midnight is pretty much my, like, I need to have, whatever procrastination, whatever revenge on my day I'm going to practice needs to be done about midnight. So learning your body and learning how much you need in terms of rest and keeping that in mind. And you do build a sleep debt. Like you over time, you will feel more and more stress. You'll have more and more cortisol. Your body will feel the effects of that, which is going to impact your cognitive functioning. Is going to impact all of the things that are already impacted by neurodivergence. Your executive functioning and your working memory are all going to be impacted by you being too stressed out because you're not getting enough sleep. So that's another thing. Like, you already know you have trouble with these things. The medications help to a degree, but like I said, medications don't solve it. It just, it's kind of a Band-Aid to make things a little better. So, keep in mind that like the longer you go with these habits, the harder it is on your body and your brain.
You will get people that will, like, when I had a client that I was talking to the other day, actually. This is, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago. And he told me, he's like, sorry, I'm a little out of it today because I started watching Rachel Maddow. It got me upset. I started watching something else, and I just, next thing I know, it was 4 a.m. and I got 2 hours of sleep, and I'm totally out of it today.
Yep.
I expected him, like he told me this, and the way that he told me this, it was like he was embarrassed to admit it, but we know each other well enough where he's okay to say it. But it felt like I wasn't shaming him for it because I've done it. But
he felt
feel like
embarrassed anyway.
shame on this, like people telling you something just makes it so much worse. And it almost makes it where, because it's called, because the word revenge is in there,
right?
Specifically, it's almost like now somebody told me today, like, oh, why did you stay up all night last night? Well, tonight, now I'm just going to do it out of revenge on them too.
Right.
So it's almost like it could just build and build and build, where like, I feel like somebody that is supportive of somebody that is, like doing this on a nightly basis, somebody that is supportive of them shouldn't be shaming them for it, because it just, I think, going to make it way worse.
Right. And that's why a lot of the advice of, like, just go to bed earlier, or, these different things don't address the issue here. And if the underlying issue for bedtime procrastination, it doesn't have to be revenge, but for bedtime procrastination, is the fact that you feel like you don't have enough autonomy in your life, and that's a weight on you. That's what needs to change. And there are, people have to work, and if you are in a job or something that doesn't allow your neurodivergence to flourish, and you have to mask, like I said before, you need to figure out ways to accommodate yourself that don't involve you putting off resting, right? And I talk a lot about rest, because one of the biggest pieces of my unmasking journey has been to learn the capacity I have to do things. And it is significantly lower than it was when I ran myself into burnout all the time, right? Because when I ran myself into burnout, I could run on full blast constantly. Like, I had my turbo engines running, right? Like, I was just constant, but I would crash every 3 or 4 months. I would get to a point where I didn't function right. I would get sick. My body would be like, hey, you're going to rest, because I have chosen now for you to rest, because you're going to be sick.
Right.
And that doesn't help either. Like, that's not productive or good or fun or helpful. That's just, and I'm not saying I have any, regrets that my life has changed like this. But I do look at my capacity now, and I'm just gobsmacked at how low it is sometimes, and how much I have to stop myself from pushing myself too far, to continue to in sometimes the search for that autonomy, and to listen to my body instead and say, okay, you need to go to bed early tonight. I've been having seasonal headaches from allergies the last couple of days, and I still can't get myself sometimes to, like, I went to bed at 10 o'clock last night. I went and laid in my bed at 10 o'clock last night, and I still didn't turn my light off to go to sleep until 11:30. For what reason? Like, no, I wasn't doing anything important. I wasn't like, it was all stupid. I did read. I have been trying to read. What I need to get back into, and I know this myself, is I have a Kindle, like a Paperwhite, like one of the flat page readers.
Yeah.
I need to get back into reading on that, because getting away from the screen on my phone, because it's too tempting. I read on the Kindle app on my phone, and it's too easy to say, I went, and this is exactly what I did yesterday. It was at, like, last night, it was like 10:45, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop reading. And I'm like, oh, but I'll just check TikTok really quick.
Right. There's no real quick.
And there is no real quick. And I wanted to check it because I have been posting content on TikTok. If anybody's interested in following me, at Doc Liz with 2 Z's. I have been posting ADHD and Disability Awareness Month posts on TikTok. And so I wanted to check TikTok because I wanted to see how my most recent video was doing. And so I'm like, oh, this is going to be, and this is the lie I tell myself. This is a lie I tell myself. I am just going to look at my numbers, and then I'll shut the app down. 45 minutes later was when I was like, you were supposed to go to bed. You were supposed to go to sleep. You still have a headache.
Right. So again, technology showing you, looking at your phone, showing you notifications, showing you,
Mm-hmm.
all these
Yep.
things. Like one of the things that, you can do is like have the do not disturb activated at a certain
Yep.
time to not, put in the notifications to you. That doesn't stop you from
Right.
still going to the app and looking at something.
Right.
But
Yeah.
what are some other like ways that somebody could like break this pattern of not wanting to go to sleep?
If you have the ability to, put your phone in another room. Don't sleep with your phone by your bed, right?
Yeah. We can all
Like
say
get
that. Can we
We
do
can
that? But
all
we can
say
say that.
that, and I won't because, I don't always have my child with me, so, like, my
Right.
phone needs to be nearby, and I have family members that I take care of that I need to hear from, so I can't. It's my only phone. If I had a house phone, that might be a different story,
Yeah.
but, like, I have to be able to get emergency calls if they come through. So, like, I can't do that. Like I said, getting on the Kindle instead to read, getting into habits of bedtime habits that aren't associated with, a screen are really good. Getting into rituals that help you relax, you know, thinking about how you can best support your nervous system. And that can be lighting, it can be having, blackout curtains. It can be needing white noise. It can be not needing white noise. It could be wanting a fan. Like there's lots of different things you can do. And really, I think the most important mindset shift is to recognize that your rest. I keep saying this one too. Rest is productive. Like it is part of your productive life to rest. You cannot be productive without rest, and you cannot be your best, and you cannot be healthy, and you cannot be all of the things that many of us are seeking out to be without allowing your body and your brain the rest it needs. So kind of thinking that going to bed and getting out of scrolling as a means of being kind to yourself and supportive and loving, I think is really something that we should promote for people. A good way to think
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like I mentioned the the shame that can be caused by other people, but in my example of the client that I talked to,
That was
it was so
him.
much, it was blaming himself for this whole
Yeah,
thing.
it was self-blame, like, he was, like, beating up on himself and thinking that you would know and or worried that you would know, that you would
Yeah.
recognize it, and you might say something, or you might think less of him, or, all of these hundreds of things. Like, it's so easy to, beat yourself up over things. And if you are, and, as I say, with like, if you slip and you end up masking, or, you slip and you end up, falling into, rejection dysphoria, like, or your rejection sensitivity makes you feel like, oh, somebody hates me because they didn't return my text message immediately, which is something I constantly deal with.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm not blaming you. But, if you slip, if you have, if you have a good night and then the next night you don't, and then you kind of bounce back and forth, like we don't need to be all or nothing, right?
Mhm.
Like, when you're breaking patterns like this, like I'm not really mad at myself. At least I fell asleep last night at 11:30 and not 12 or 12:30. Like I was a little earlier. And it's
Right.
like, I know what I need to do, which is get my Kindle out and get it charged and start using that instead of my phone. But, you know, it's lazy.
I think, the other thing too is to always, and we've said this in other episodes. I'd love to take credit for this. It was probably you that said it because it sounds smart, but it was that, everything is designed against us on this right now.
Yes, it is.
The
Our
the
lives are designed
algorithms,
not to support us
right?
getting rest. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
algorithms are not our friends in
Mm-mm.
this, and they
Yeah.
just make it more harmful. So, I mean, if you can, yeah, like get rid of your phone at night. Fantastic. The do
Yeah.
not disturb is a great thing.
Just really good.
All these
And don't
other,
do like I did, where I took like my half a dozen friends who I talk to regularly and I put them in the I will accept text messages after do not disturb from them.
Nice.
You are in that group.
Oh, okay. Well, you shouldn't have told me that. Talk to you tonight at midnight.
Yeah, and heed them. Like when your phone goes into do not disturb, like don't do like I've done, and like,
Create all the
don't.
exceptions.
Yeah, and I turned notifications off on most of my social media apps years ago, and I haven't turned them back on, which is one of the reasons why I pop into TikTok, because I don't get notifications that there's been activity or
Gotcha.
etc. So that's one of the, but it's like you said, like there's no way to prevent me from not doing it, other than to get out of the habit of, okay, I'm just going to check real quick.
Right. Okay, I did write down those questions earlier that I didn't get to. So one of them is, and I this isn't on the list, so I hope you're ready for this. Let's dig in here. But what is the name of the person, the one person in the world that doesn't suffer from this? Because I feel like every single and I know you said, people, birds of a feather stick together.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I don't know anyone. I can't think of anyone that has not
Really?
said this at some point to me. I just feel like, it's probably just there's a higher instance of it, I guess, with neurodivergence, and
Yes.
there's more of it, and it's just
Yeah.
harder. But I feel like everybody in the world struggles from this. So if you do struggle from it, you are definitely not alone.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I do think there is a lot there is a lot in terms of the social media outlets and, streaming services, the ones that automatically start playing the next
Mhm.
episode. I turned that off in the settings in my streaming services,
Oh,
the
nice.
autoplay.
Okay.
And it's really good. It really helps, because if it doesn't automatically kick up another episode, like you don't have to catch it to stop it, right? It
Right.
just, right, you have to go in and mindfully say, do I have the capacity to watch another episode, instead of it just like kicking in and
Right.
playing for you. And that's really helpful too. So there are some tools we can use with our, our digital lives. Like, think about how different it was way back in our day when, there were 4 TV channels and, there wasn't
Yeah.
programming after 10 o'clock at night, really, right? There were like, some
Infomercials
shows.
and
Yeah.
what was
You
that?
got to.
The the chamois guy. I can't think
Oh,
of
right.
yeah.
ShamWow. Is it ShamWow?
Whatever. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know what those were.
OxyClean. I
But
don't
yeah,
know.
there were all kinds of those
There
things
were
that
like commercials and
we had
stuff, and
nothing.
there was news, and there was the Late Show, right? But the Late Show came on after the news, and like, we didn't start watching the Late Show until what, high school or college,
Well,
maybe.
that's you. I
That
started
was, I
early.
know you were a Johnny Carson fan, but
Love that
but
man.
yeah, like, we didn't have this. Like there
Yeah.
is constant, access to entertainment.
Yep.
And
It is.
that's a very different world.
Yeah. The thing is, you can't even say it's at your fingertips, because it's also like it's on your wrist, it's on your
Right.
wall, it's everywhere.
Yep. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
all over, and
It surrounds
nonstop.
you, right?
Mhm.
I put a TV in my bedroom not that long ago, and I've only used it a handful of times because I don't like having the TV on in my bedroom. I'm not one of those people. My mom always left the TV on all the time. Like, and I would go crazy at her house because like I would go and she'd be in the other room. She'd be in the kitchen with me and we're getting ready to play cards and eat a meal and her TV was still on. And it would drive me bonkers. I have to go turn it off. Like I couldn't handle having the sound on. And but that was never something that I wanted. But I guess cable kind of changed that too, because in cable there were always different things in cable,
Yeah.
but there's just so much that we have access to all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And and then it comes the desire for those things to consume them.
Yep.
All right. Well, I only have one other question for you. How are your nerds?
Oh, my nerds are great.
For somebody that hasn't heard, and when we think we're talking about a candy or, people that are from the 80s that are, I don't know, in some movie.
That wear glasses?
No, we are not. We are talking
not.
about your nerds. Tell us about that.
Yes. So I have started a monthly group coaching group called NERDS, Neurodivergent Education Resource Discussion, NERD. And it's going to be monthly. And you can sign up on my website. So just search for Divergent Paths Consulting and sign up for the NERD group. It's free. Come, there will be like a short discussion, kind of like, I do in the podcast, where I'll give a little brief, not a lecture necessarily, but just some information about something like masking or PDA. If you have not listened to the demand avoidance episode, you can come and I could potentially talk about pathological demand avoidance there. I'll give a short, topic overview, and then we'll have time to discuss late diagnosed adult people or people who are thinking they might be ADHD and are kind of wondering and want a space to kind of talk and explore to see if it is in alignment for them. So yeah, come check it out.
Awesome. And that's in the Pacific Northwest.
Yes.
People could drive there.
Well, this is virtual, so everybody can come
virtual.
to this. Yes, okay. This is online. So I do have some in-person ones that I'm doing in my town at some different locations, but I am doing online ones, especially for the summer. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So it'll be monthly. Come check it out. Come hang out with me.
Before we go though, I'm thinking that there's probably somebody listening to this episode at 11:30
who might be
at night, right? Like this is what they're doing.
Right.
Now, what's the one takeaway for them, for the people that are seeing this pattern in their life?
So you don't need more willpower. So this isn't something that you can just kind of strong arm yourself out of. You need to give yourself permission to rest without guilt.
I like it.
I like it too.
Okay, good night.
Good night. If you see yourself in this pattern, let me just say this clearly. You are not lazy. You are not undisciplined. You are likely exhausted, overstimulated, and craving space to be you. You don't need stricter schedules or more shame. You need rest. You need autonomy. And you need community. Which is why I created NERDS, the Neurodivergent Education Resource Discussion Group, a free monthly gathering where we talk about what it actually means to support neurodivergent minds. It's low pressure, welcoming, and you are invited. Sign up for our next session online by clicking the link in the show notes. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. And remember, rest isn't earned, it's essential.